So you're thinking of moving to Tampa, Florida? In this video, I'm going to break down the cost of living in Tampa. We'll go much deeper than just real estate pricing, so be sure to stick around until the end so you get a really good picture of the overall cost of living in Tampa and if it would be a good fit for your lifestyle. Let's get started. If this is your first time on the channel and you want to know everything about living in a Tampa luxury condo community, then subscribe below and tap the bell for notifications so you can be the first to know about the Tampa luxury condo market and lifestyle. My name is Nathaniel Ligon, the Tampa Condo King. I specialize in representing luxury condo owners and buyers in Tampa, Florida. I get calls every day from people just like you, so whether you're looking to move in 10 days or 10 weeks, please reach out. All of my contact information is in the description box below. I would love to help you make a smooth move to a luxury condo community in Tampa, Florida. Now let's take a closer look at the cost of living in Tampa. We'll jump right into today's content as we break down the cost of living here in Tampa, Florida. Now we'll start with the income portion of it. So a lot of the statistics show the median incomes in Tampa hover right around $60,000 a year, which actually is right along the same lines of the national average. So keep in mind, one of the biggest factors though at play, and as a very advantageous factor for people that are here in Florida, is that we don't have the state income tax. So that is a big deal and allows you to keep a lot more of your money. So even if the incomes are right about in line with the national average, you end up putting a lot more money in your pocket, so to speak, with that simple fact of not having the state income tax. So Florida, of course, only one of a few states in the United States to have that no state income tax. So certainly a big deal, and one of the reasons why so many continue to flock here to Florida. And whether you're an employee, an entrepreneur, whether you're maybe new to the workforce or even a business owner, Tampa consistently ranks as one of the top relocation destinations, one of the top places to be an entrepreneur and to even start a business. So regardless of what your status is in the workforce, a lot of very favorable factors are certainly behind you, so keep that in mind. We'll talk more about the pros and cons, but really that's more so for my Tampa pros and cons video, so we'll stick more to the overall cost of living. So staying on that front, one of the biggest expenses, of course, for people is housing. So we'll start off with the median home values in Tampa right now are right about $400,000 in terms of the average rent. And I'll pull up my notes quick. Average rent is right around $1,780 per month. Some other factors to consider, and we'll just run through some of the stats for Tampa, and then we'll talk more about how it relates to national averages, just to put it into perspective. And then we'll also close out with how it relates to some other markets, whether they're here in Florida or some of our top feeder markets per se, where we see a lot of residents come here from. So just sticking with Tampa, again, median home values right around $400,000, median rent right around $1,780 per month. Average energy bill, you're looking at about $189 per month. Internet, about $75 per month. Gas right now is $3.37 a gallon. Car insurance, about $270 per month. And then home insurance, about $3,100 per year. So the last two, especially the homeowner's insurance and car insurance, that of course is going to vary just based on, a lot of different factors. Home insurance in particular, with the home value and your situation and the area and what type of coverage you want. So homeowners insurance is tricky to estimate. I at least wanted to give you a figure, but if you have more questions or concerns on that, definitely reach out to me. We can talk a little bit more about your specific scenarios and situations that you're curious about, or maybe you've gotten some information from other sources that you weren't sure, how accurate that was. Again, there are a lot of different factors that play into home insurance. So one thing, again, you can certainly reach out to me, and also I can connect you with a great local Florida homeowners insurance expert. That way you can hash out some of those questions. Car insurance as well, that average that I gave you, I personally am under that average for full coverage, not like bare bones coverage or anything like that. Full coverage, good coverage, reputable company, I'm under that. But again, it just varies on a lot of different factors with exactly what zip code you're in and how many miles you're putting in, what type of vehicle you have. So just keep in mind those are averages, and we can certainly discuss that a little bit further depending on where you're at in your journey of potentially considering Tampa as a home for you. So those are some of the main Tampa facts. Homeowners insurance is usually a big question. Certainly we've had a lot of challenges with homeowners insurance in recent years. You may have heard some national news about insurance crisis in Florida and some of what happened in recent years. So there were a lot of challenges. There were carriers that had to leave the market and financially couldn't withstand what they're up against. So I will say in the last 6 months or so, maybe even extended to a year, there definitely has been some improvements, and it seems like more carriers are coming into the state, which is good. And it seems like homeowners are having more options and things are stabilizing a little bit more in the insurance space, which is great. So hopefully what we experienced a couple years ago was the low point, and now things will just continue to trend in a positive direction. But usually car insurance and homeowners insurance are well over the national averages. So depending on what market you're coming from, those might be the two things that really stand out to you. So certainly wanted to detail that information. And now we'll jump into how some of those factors play into some of the national averages. And just a couple quick notes too. Again, this varies a lot just based on your situation, but groceries, maybe about $1,000 per month. If you were to go out to a restaurant in Tampa, have a mid-range restaurant, 3-course meal with 2 people dining, you could be looking at about $95, somewhere in that range. A beer or a drink, maybe about $7. So how we compare to national averages. Now, I know we have a large number of people that come down to Florida and Tampa specifically. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, there are some feeder markets that we do see even more activity from. For these averages, we'll just talk about the national averages, so that way if you're on the higher end, you can kind of get a feel, or maybe if you're in a smaller market, you can get a feel for what things are like on the lower end. But overall, Tampa has about a 4% higher cost of living than the national average. Now, these two things are really interesting. So buying a home is about a 12% increase from the national average, but renting is about a 24% increase over the national average. So just something to keep in mind if you're maybe looking to move down here but potentially rent, and you're not sure if you want to maybe explore that option before you buy. That could be an interesting thing for you to consider, how much the home prices are versus the rent prices are down here. Also, groceries on average tend to be about 5% higher than the national average. And then as we continue, healthcare seems to be about at the national average. Utilities around 4% lower. Transportation, I think this is mostly because of car insurance, tends to be about 12% higher. And then some miscellaneous things like meals, clothing, entertainment tend to be about 5% higher than the national average. So as I mentioned, I go over this a lot more in detail in the Tampa pros and cons video in terms of what value you're getting being here in Tampa. So this video is more designed for the cost of living, so more of the cost and what you pay, whereas the pros and cons video is more about the value, which is what you get. So I think between these two videos, you should get a really good overview of Tampa's value proposition. And the statistics, I think, clearly show that value proposition seems to really weigh in favor of Tampa. And, again, a reason why we've seen so many residents continue to relocate here and flock here to Tampa, just based on all that it has to offer with a relatively reasonable cost of living. So only you can decide that, of course, and each neighborhood that you might have interest in, I do a variety of videos on. So Tampa is more of the bigger picture, and then if you have questions on specific neighborhoods, of course, we can drill down further, and you could check out some of the other videos on that front. And lastly, we'll finish up with how the Tampa cost of living matches up with other parts of the country. So as I mentioned, typically California and New York tend to be our biggest markets that we see people flock from to Tampa. So certainly some of those higher tax states like California and New York, that among a lot of other things are one of the big reasons. And you've got other states like in the Midwest, like Ohio or Illinois, that we see a lot of movement from as well. So a lot of people, though, don't always realize that not only is Tampa a great destination for those around the country and even around the world, but also just within Florida. So you might find it interesting, some of the cost of living statistics for some of the other areas in Florida. So Fort Lauderdale, for example, in South Florida, average home price you're looking at about $784, and overall cost of living is about 22% lower in Tampa. Also, similarly, Miami-Dade County, for example, home price about $676, also about 22% lower overall cost of living in Tampa. Only an hour south of us in Sarasota, average home value is about $523, and cost of living overall in Tampa is about 8% lower. So even just within Florida, you can again argue about some of the quality of life factors, but relatively, if you would consider some of these cities having a similar quality of life, I mean, South Florida, 22% higher cost of living, even Sarasota, 8% higher. So the value proposition again continues to tip in Tampa's favor for sure. Now, as we look at other markets around the country, as I mentioned, California tends to be a really big market for us. Los Angeles, Long Beach, for example, average home price about $1.2 million, and cost of living in Tampa is about 55% lower. San Francisco, about $1.4 million as the average home price. You're looking at a cost of living in Tampa about 77% lower. Even Denver, $650 overall average home price. Cost of living in Tampa, you're looking at about 15% lower. Washington, D.C., $1.1 million on the home price front, 53% lower cost of living in Tampa. Chicago, $540 price point for home values, 18% lower in Tampa for overall cost of living. And then a couple more markets will stick with the East Coast for the next two. Boston, $960,000 median home value. Cost of living overall is 53% lower in Tampa. And get this one, this is New York City. This is Manhattan, so the most upscale neighborhood or borough in New York. So we're looking at a $2.6 million average home price, with cost of living in Tampa 135% lower. And lastly, we'll finish out on the West Coast, Seattle. We're looking at average home value about $1 million, cost of living in Tampa about 51% lower. So interesting statistics. Again, I think the number of people coming down, moving to Tampa, I think is clear. That trend will continue. Hopefully this gives you a better idea of the overall cost of living and how it relates to some other markets around the country, and only you can decide. I think the cost of living though in Tampa being right about average, a little bit higher than average, but our overall quality of life continuing to be ranked at the very top. It's not a bad value proposition when you look at paying about average or a little bit higher than average and getting exceptional. All right, that'll do it for today's video as we broke down the cost of living in Tampa, Florida. I hope you enjoyed and got some great value from today's video. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, please comment below with any questions, feedback, or comments that you have. And if you haven't already, be sure to check out my Tampa pros and cons video. That way you've got a great overview of what life is like in Tampa paired with today's information on the cost of living. Whether you're looking to move in 10 days or 10 weeks, please reach out. All of my contact information is in the description box below. I would love to help you make a smooth move to Tampa, Florida. Again, thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, we'll talk to you soon.